had an interview set up for this week, however, it never happened. I was going to interview a young lady in relation to her battle to stop her baby daughter being adopted, which is now in care. Sometimes in life we face challenges that we fight in our own simple way, and any outside involvement can sometimes feel and be a little bit daunting. Now, I kept in regular contact with the young lady in the run-up to the interview, but that fizzled out slightly. I have never and will never pressure someone into doing something or anything that they don't want to do or feel uncomfortable doing. If she is watching this now, I wish her well and wish her every ounce of success for the future, and hope she can win this battle like she has done all the other challenges she has told me and she has faced and overcome. Now on to this week's episode. Yet another mass shooting in America. We've all seen the videos and we've all read the reports. Many of us are asking questions. But are any of us not only asking questions about what happened, but questioning the questions that are actually being asked? Stephen Paddock, a 64-year-old local man. We've all heard his name now. They believe he shot and killed himself on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino. We've all heard it by now. Now, he shot and killed 59 people and at least 527 were injured in what officials are now calling the deadliest mass shooting in modern US history. We've all heard that over the last few days. But he fired an automatic weapon on the Route 91 Harvest Country Music Festival in Las Vegas. The grounds in which the concert was held was flooded with people. They were everywhere. Now, in my view, that was a good distance away, and that's where it gets interesting. But you have to note that Paddock, according to official reports and statements, they claim Stephen Paddock, a retired 64-year-old accountant, had absolutely no firearms training, no gun experience, and according to them, how they know I don't know, no physical stamina that he was somehow able to expertly wield a highly complex and some would say a physically demanding weapon, and he managed to sustain that for 10 minutes. And the amount of guns he had were transported to his room in 10 suitcases. Now, I've been to Vegas, I've been in some of them hotels, and they are busy, really busy. How did no one both notice and question the contents of the suitcases? Now, I would think you would know the difference between a case of clothes and a case of guns. So how did a fairly elderly guy shoot an automatic weapon at a venue, in my view, so far away from the concert and managed to kill so many people? To try and get behind the scenes of this shooting, you have to start at the beginning, the very beginning. And I feel I may get a little bit damned for even mentioning this. But the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution protects the right of the people to keep and bear arms. And this amendment was noted down on December the 15th, 1791 as part of the first 10 amendments contained in the Bill of Rights. The Supreme Court of the United States has ruled the right that belongs to individuals, whilst also ruling that the right is not unlimited and does not prohibit all regulation of either firearms or similar devices. State and local governments are limited to the same extent as the federal government from infringing this right per the incorporation of the Bill of Rights. According to history, the Second Amendment was based partially on the right to keep and bear arms in the English common law and was influenced by the English Bill of Rights of 1689. Sir William Blackstone, an 18th century conservative politician, described this right as an auxiliary right supporting the natural rights of self-defence, resistance to oppression, and the civil act of duty to act in concert in defence of the state. And as an added note, to resist a tyrannical government.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Now, it's become a case of anyone that has a bug to bear grabs a gun and starts shooting. Aren't the people being oppressed by the very people that hold the weapons and use them in an act of aggression instead of defense? Now, after an executive order brought in by President Obama restricting mentally ill people from purchasing guns, Donald Trump then signs a bill to reverse that order. And Trump also says mass shootings are a way of life. But do they have to be? Is he basically saying what I've heard many Americans refer to, that they don't have a gun problem? But whilst the Las Vegas shooting was bad enough, there was another one taking place that didn't quite get the same amount of coverage. In Lawrence, Kansas, other people were getting killed at the hands of another crazed individual. Lawrence police reported hearing multiple gunshots at 1:40 a.m. on Sunday. When the officers approached the scene, there were several victims suffering gunshot wounds. 3 died and 2 were taken to the hospital and were treated, thankfully, for non-life-threatening injuries. The shots rang out on Massachusetts Street, a popular area in the University of Kansas College town. Reports say the streets were crowded. Concerts that had just let out, and it was the same night as the University of Kansas basketball team's annual celebration. So just how bad has it gotten? Well, an investigation done by Vox could tell us. America has 6 times as many firearm homicides as Canada and nearly 16 times as many as Germany. And there have been more than 1,500 mass shootings since Sandy Hook, and we've all heard of that one. But it's an astounding figure, I think. On average, there is more than 1 mass shooting for each day in America. But Republicans, according to reports, don't actually believe access to guns increases the likelihood of mass shootings. But a study done by a source known as Mother Jones, a reader-supported non-profit news organisation, found out using data from a study at Pediatrics and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Mother Jones put together a chart that shows states with more guns tend to have far more gun deaths. And it was not just one study. Within the United States, a wide array of empirical evidence indicates that more guns in a community leads to more homicide. So has it become now a point of protection or an easy way of venting anger and having the ability to control those around you? But one thing that may come as a surprise, and it did to me, a majority of gun-related deaths in the US are in fact suicides. As Dylan Matthews explained for Vox, this is actually one of the most compelling reasons for reducing access to guns. There is a lot of research that shows greater access to guns dramatically increases the risk of suicide. But there seems to be many people putting questions out there with regards to background checks. Well, as of November 2016, 19 states and Washington DC have background check requirements beyond federal law. 9 states require universal background checks at the point of sale for all transfers, including purchases from unlicensed sellers. Maryland and Pennsylvania laws in this regard are limited to handguns. However, gun show loophole, gun law loophole, Brady law loophole, private sale loophole and private sale exemption are political terms in the United States referring to sales of firearms by private sellers, including those done at gun shows dubbed the secondary market.
Gun shows attract thousands of hunters, collectors, and gun enthusiasts. But they're not the only ones. Criminals are attracted to gun shows because of the loophole in federal law that allows them to avoid background checks.
The term refers to the concept that a loophole in federal law exists under which any person may sell a firearm to an unlicensed resident of the state where they reside, as long as they do not know or have reasonable cause to believe the person is prohibited from receiving or possessing firearms. And also, under federal law, private party sellers are not required to perform background checks on buyers, whether at a gun show or other venue. They are also not required to record the sale or ask for identification. This requirement is in contrast to sales by gun stores and other federal firearms license holders, who are required to record all sales and perform background checks on almost all buyers, regardless of whether the venue is their business location or indeed at a gun show. Access to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System is limited to FFL holders, and FLLs are not issued to persons that only sell firearms at gun shows. So there seems, at the moment at least, many loopholes and laws that almost contradict each other. Should gun laws be tightened? Yes, I think they should. Should there be a gun amnesty in place? Yes, also I think there should. But let's face it, if you have a gun for defence, whether for intruders or against a tyrannical government, why would you want a semi-automatic or even a fully automatic weapon in your arsenal? But let's take the foundations of what the Second Amendment was made for militia to able to defend against a corrupt government. But consider these facts. There are around 1.4 million US servicemen and women in the US military, active, reservists and National Guardsmen. These men and women, if none of them have deserted, would be fighting against nearly 80 million households. But what if only half of the households decided not to fight? Then there would still be 40 million households against a 1.4 million man force, according to the Geneva-based Small Arms Survey, the leading source of international public information about firearms. The US has the best armed civilian population in the world, with an estimated 270 million total guns. That's an average of 90 firearms for every 100 residents. So why do people feel the need to keep carrying guns? Why is it okay for people with mental health issues to buy guns? This will carry on and many more will die. Things happen behind closed doors that we would simply find outlandish if we knew about them. Is the government initiating what many of us call black flags to further support the Second Amendment? Many people say we can't alter the Constitution, but they have already done it, haven't they? The amendments are just that, amendments, changes made to the Bill of Rights. They can change it if they want to. Why does it have to be a right to carry a tool, a weapon that ends someone's life? Restricting guns doesn't work, many have said. Won't solve the problem in America. Well, in 1996, a 20-year-old man walked into a cafe in Port Arthur, Australia, ate lunch, pulled a semi-automatic rifle out of his bag and opened fire on the crowd, killing 35 people and wounding 23 more. It was the worst mass shooting in Australia's history. Australian lawmakers responded with new legislation that, among other provisions, banned certain types of firearms such as automatic and semi-automatic rifles and shotguns. The Australian government confiscated 650,000 of these guns through a gun buyback program in which it purchased firearms from gun owners. It established a registry of all guns owned in the country and required a permit for all new firearm purchases. And this is much rather than bills typically proposed in the US, which almost never make a serious attempt to immediately reduce the number of guns in the country. The result? Australia's firearm homicide dropped by 42% in 7 years after the law passed, and its firearm suicide rate fell by 57%, according to one review of the evidence by Harvard researchers. So change does happen. Change can happen. But one thing I know for sure, you will never have peace with a weaponized mind. Never. We will continue to see mass shootings in America, I feel. Yes. Will the American government address the situation? Yes, by allowing more people to have guns and allowing for more dangerous guns to be given out. After all, let's face it, there is always a lot of money to be made by many people in relation to weapons. After all, It's good for the economy, isn't it? Thanks for watching the Tony Martin Experience. Next week, who are the big money men in the military worlds? Who's making money from war? And who are the big sellers? And what country is making the profit from the suffering of many people around the world? Join me next week on the Tony Martin Experience. Please subscribe and don't miss out. And what do you think about American gun laws? Is there a problem? Let us know below. See you next week. Bye bye for now. Fucking hell!